First, though, I want to know if we're doing enough to tackle gang culture, because earlier this month we heard how serious youth violence had risen once again, despite falls in previous years. Down here in London, youth gang offences were up 23% on last year. There's also a 14% rise in knife injury. Some of you may know that 12 young people have been stabbed to death in the capital in the past 12 months. Now, if you cast your mind back, after the riots of 4 years ago, we heard various politicians line up to promise to tackle gang culture. And I think back in 2011, the Home Secretary, Theresa May, travelled to Washington to meet and work with the experts there on trying to understand why young people join gangs. Trouble is, we've had cuts to the police and youth service budgets, which have not just seen fewer coppers on the street, but some 3,000 fewer youth workers and 350 youth centres closed their doors too. And I really want to know if there's a connection between those cuts and this rise in gang culture. But there are other factors at play too, aren't there? Family breakdown and so on. Well, joining us today are two young men who know more than most about gang culture. We'll kick off by welcoming Sephton Henry and Stephen Ita here this morning. Good morning to you, chaps.
Hi.
Let's carry on with you first, Sephton. What's your story?
My story? Well, I've been to prison 7 times.
7 times?
Yes.
How old are you?
I'm 26 now.
So how old were you when you first went
I first went in when I was about 14.
And this was for gang activities?
Gang activities, robberies, vandalising.
So how did you first get involved with gangs? How did it begin?
Well, I was living in a poverty area. There wasn't much prospects for us. And the older boys, they would give me money to do certain things. And to feel safe in the area that I was, I needed a group with me. And that's how I got involved.
OK. Dan, anything you'd like to ask Sephton?
So that drew you in, like a kind of sense of family, but was it more from fear than anything else?
Not exactly, because I was hungry many times out on the street. I didn't have no money.
Was your own family letting you down, basically? Was that a problem then? Your actual kith and kin?
Well, I wouldn't say that 100%. I kind of chose to go out onto the street.
So it wasn't your choice?
What's that, sorry?
It was your choice?
It was my choice to go out on the street because I wasn't getting what I needed. And it's not 100%. I wouldn't blame my mum for poverty. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I'm imagining out on the streets it's fairly violent. I mean, we've heard about the rise in knife attacks. Has anything happened to you along those lines?
Yeah, I've been shot at, stabbed.
Shot at and stabbed?
Yes.
Oh.
I've been bricked, bottled. I've had my fair share of fights. Sometimes it's your mind, isn't it, that gets eaten away and your dignity gets taken away from you because people look down upon you. From when you say that you've been in gang culture and things like that, straight away it's a stigma on it.
People make judgments.
And judgments. So you kind of separate yourself from society and you make your own world, and in that world, the way that you want things to go is the way that it's going to go.
So did it quickly become your identity then? You kind of felt that, because you felt a disconnect with the real world,
Yes.
well, the other world, so to speak. So you felt that you felt like people thought that what you were doing was wrong, but that was part of you.
So if I say something, what is morally right to one person may be different for somebody else.
Yeah.
If you're in a situation that you have to react to, then you're going to react the best way fit for you at that time. If you're in a situation where you're backed up against the corner, you're going to defend yourself. And I believe I was backed up into the corner where I had to. If robbing is wrong, but if you have no food, no money, then you are going to rob.
Right. I get it. Shazia.
After you'd been shot at and stabbed, did you think, oh my God, I need to get out of this now? Did that frighten you?
I was too far gone to get out of it. It's the psychological side of things that really mess up people in gang culture. But I don't 100% call it gang culture, I call it street culture, because many people are involved in it, and it's not necessarily have to have a group of people. It could be one person.
Did you, when you came out of prison, all the time, so each time you came out of prison, did you think, right, this is it, I've learnt my lesson, paid my debt to society, I'm going to start again, I'm going to sort of sort my life out? No.
I came out and I was planning to do worse. I was very angry with society. I believed that I got let down.
Right.
I met XLP and they changed things for me.
OK, Robert.
Yeah, so what gave you the escape route from this street culture?
Well, I met a man called Ethan and he works for XLP and he had a bus, a van, a studio van, and he continually showed me hope.
Cool bus, I'm seeing it there, OK.
Yes. And he showed me hope. And when he showed me hope, he showed me that the things that I was doing, there was another way. There was a way out of what I was doing. I was affiliated with gangs from Brixton to Abbeywood to South East London, the whole of it. So you was talking to somebody that was really deep in it at that time, and the words that he was speaking, I had never heard. I never had the chance to go to school or anything like that, and to have that sort of love.
Can I bring in Stephen here? So you've not been part of gang culture, as far as I understand, is that right?
Yeah, I was never in a gang.
How come you managed to swerve it?
I think for me it came down to one thing, and it was having an alternative. And I think having an alternative gave me a different platform, basically. So it meant I didn't have to become the negativity that I saw in my environment.
What was the alternative?
The alternative, like he's mentioned already, was XLP and
This is a charity
the charity that came into my school and does a lot of stuff in my school at like lunch clubs and things like that. And it just gave me a different platform from what I was seeing. So instead of at night going out and robbing people and doing stuff, I'll be thinking XLP will have something different for me to do, which would be either doing some music in the recording studio or playing football. And I think having that alternative and having someone, a sense of belonging, I should say, like having a different sense of belonging.
I get that completely. And this leads me, if I can, to bring Patrick here, founder of XLP. Some of the questions asking at the beginning, is it the lack of police and the cuts? Is it losing 3,000 youth workers, 350 youth centres? Is it family breakdown? Is it the appeal of maybe gangster culture, for want of a better word, that's drifted over from America? Which of those things drives young people into gangs?
Well, unfortunately, it's all those things.
All of them.
There's a combination. There's never one reason why a kid joins the gang, but I feel like it's the biggest problem we have is no one wants to look long term. You know, our prisons are full. Young people, if they've caught up in the criminal justice system, lost it, that's costing the taxpayer £200,000 a year. I was in a prison, there was 35 gangs within the prison. And
so gang culture continues inside
of course, yeah. And what happens is the young people, 70% of them re-offend. And so for us in XLP, what we're saying is we've got to be committed to the long haul. We need a change in culture. We need these guys not to be feared, not to be scared, but to have...
Spell it out for me. How do we change culture? The House of Lords are prepared to break all the rules in the book at the moment, so we could ask them to maybe introduce some changes.
Well, I think for us, it's about how do we get long-term relationships, because a lot of these guys, they have people that come into their lives for a very short period of time and then leave again. And so one of the things that we've been promoting is the role of mentoring, getting people alongside vulnerable young people, trying to show them there is an alternative, that we've got to get rid of this, that I've got nothing to lose, I've got no stake in society, I've got nothing to lose mentality. You've got to say, actually, you have got a purpose, you are valuable, you do have a contribution to make, and it's not a lost generation. There is a sense of hope, but that only comes with someone believing in them and being committed to them for the long haul.
And the recent rise in knife crime specifically, I mean, can we attribute that to government cuts? It had been going down, suddenly it's going back up.
Well, I think it will go up and it will go down again, and as this revolving door in prison often happens, and I think until people take the long-term view of things, there have been people killed in our communities recently, and it's an absolute tragedy. We need someone to have the courage to look long-term. This isn't going to be solved in 3 or 4 years. This is going to be people that go, I need a vision for the next 10 years, 15 years for our communities.
OK. Patrick, Stephen, Sephton, if you can stay there, we're going to take a break, after which we're going to take your calls. I'd love to hear what you made of what the three gents here have shared. If you've got any ideas on how else we might tackle gang culture, give us a call. 0207 173 5555 is the number you need. Your thoughts as soon as you can after these ads.
According to one report, how many gangs are there in London alone? 17, 71 or 171? Find out after the break. So according to one report, how many gangs are there in London alone? The answer is 171.
Go. Amazing number. Welcome back. You're watching Tuesday's Wright Stuff with Dan Wright, Shazia Mirza and Robert Muchamore. To come this morning, we're asking if there's a need for movie-style age ratings on books aimed at young people. 0207 173 5555, the number for your thoughts. With many authors pushing boundaries with regards to, say, sex and violence, you have to ask if it's time books were regulated like films. First, we're going to hear what you think needs to be done to tackle the rising menace of gang culture in this country. Cuts to the police and youth work budgets have been blamed for a rise in violence, but it's clear that other families can be at play as well, perhaps family breakdown. Now, we've previously just heard from an ex-gang member, Sephton Henry. He's told us how he's been to jail 7 times before a charity's music project actually offered him a lifeline, a way out, while Stephen Eater explained how more work needs to be done within troubled communities to stop other kids getting into trouble, as Sephton once did. The phones are red hot. Please feel free to jump in, guys. You too, Patrick. Let's see what people are saying.
We've got Mark on line 1.
Morning, Mark.
Morning.
What needs to be done to tackle gang culture?
You know what, I think a lot of it's down to scare tactics. I think you've got to scare the youth into knowing that if they do something wrong, then a big punishment is going to come down, and you've got to highlight that in a very bright way.
OK, well, if I can bring Sephton in there, 7 times in prison didn't work.
I've been in prison twice. I've been in prison twice. I've done 2 big long sentences, and I was involved in gang culture when I was growing up, when I was a child. I'm 35 now, so we're going back 20 years or so. Yeah. And the actual sentences doesn't scare people, because prison, you don't actually do nothing inside the prison to actually rehabilitate yourself.
Right.
It's more to do with hurry up and getting out and getting a fit body so you can get out. That's what it's all about. So you've got to do the scare tactics. Nobody wants to go into the army. When you come from our culture or our kind of background of just, if you want to call it the streets,
yeah,
you don't want to go into the army. You look at it I don't want to go and die quickly.
OK, Mark, let's write that down. National service type thing. Would you buy that, Sephton?
Yeah, so if I go into the army, it's just going to give me more equipment to be even badder.
No way.
Don't you think?
Sure.
If a gun's not going to scare me, if someone's shooting a gun at me is not going to change me, then...
But what about the notion that you wouldn't have the time to hang around being a gangster because you would be forced, possibly, into national service?
OK, yeah, so I'm traumatised from a lifestyle that I had lived, and the same happens to people that are in the army. They hear bombs going off, guns going off. They come back into society and they find it very hard to fit into society. They hear a plate drop in a cafe, they jump. So mentally, it's the same thing that's going to happen.
What if it's non-military? What if I was running the country? God help us all, but I was running the country and I made, if you're not in employment, educational training, I make you do 2 years civil service, working around you, remove graffiti, clean litter, look after the elderly, stuff like that.
So where's the love? Where is the compassion? Because that's what it is. We've been hurt. and we're running on that. XLP come in and show love, compassion and time.
OK. Mark, forgive me for being brief with you. I've got so many calls. Interested to hear your point. Let's have another.
Hannah on line 2.
OK, Hannah, morning.
Morning.
What do you think the problem is?
I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have a solution. I don't. Well done, Sephton, for kind of finding yourself and being brave enough to kind of get out of that culture.
Thank you.
Because I know it's difficult. I'm an ex-teacher. And I remember asking one of my students that is now dead, and he's probably one of those 12. And I asked him, if somebody from the gang called you and I called you and you saw me, who would you respond to? And he was like, well, I'll respond to them, miss, because there's only so much protection you can give me from 8 till 3. After that, my life is the streets. And that made me really, really sad because he was right. There's only so much protecting I can do. If we want to start tackling this, we need to be working with the parents, because the parents were also fearful. If they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. They go to work, so they're not home with their kids. So their kids go and find families in the gangs. If they're not at work, then you're not working and you're not bringing in the money, and then you still want to go out to the gangs because my mum can't buy the trainers. So you're always fighting this constant battle. It's going to make me cry because I'm from the borough. I'm from the streets, but they loved that about me because they could see that myth. You know what it's about. I do, but look at me now, and seeing that. But there's not enough of us in schools. I was a learning mentor. I was the head of behaviour. But the teachers, the people in schools didn't like that. They didn't want me to work with these kids because they could see that there was respect and that they were listening. And then it was more about kudos, about who could respect who.
Hang on, Hannah. You're saying so much. But let's just go back. The schools didn't like you. Presumably the heads didn't like you interacting with these young people.
No, they didn't.
Why on earth not?
Because it was like, you need to be professional, you need to...
Yes.
Can I just say, does that echo with what you're
definitely, because I remember the times when I kicked off in school and the teacher would start saying things like, you end up in a dead-end job, you end up dead or in prison before you're 16. By the way, I was only in year 7. So to have that paint on every single young person that went to the school, I think personally wasn't fair. We had a group of mentors that were trying to work with us, but I felt like the school made it difficult for them to engage. And I felt like they were the only people in the society that I can relate to, but it was difficult in a way.
I think the real challenge is there's so much pressure on the teachers for performance, getting the grades up.
I think that's what Hannah was alluding to.
And I think this is the challenge, that actually we want our young people to have character development. We want integrity, generosity, compassion. And the sense is all about numbers. So I know teachers, they're working every hour God sends them, but actually really struggling to build a relationship. And sometimes these guys have so many services around them, but all the guys that work for the services saying, I've got so much paperwork, I can't build a relationship with this person. And we know it's the relationship that's going to bring about change.
Hannah, can I ask, why did you pack in teaching?
Just because of that. I was just seeing too many people, too many of my students dying.
I'm just staggered by your testimony and totally depressed by it, Hannah. So I'd like to thank you for your call and also for the efforts you made on behalf of young people. And I'd also like to I have to draw a line under it. There's never enough time, but Sephton, Stephen and Patrick from XLP, one for doing such amazing outreach work there, and also for giving these young men an opportunity to get on television and share their problems with the rest of us who may not have a Scooby-Doo what's going on out there. So thank you.